Welcome, everybody, to the NFL show on the Grizzly Truth Sports Network. The NFL show is brought to you by Replenishing Care and Technologies. Make sure you check them out at rcandt.com. I am your co-host for the NFL show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my other co-host, NFL beat writer, Sam Teets.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today, Mike. I'm excited to finally talk about some real action.
All right, we had some real action last night. I think it was kind of what we expected, Sam. Houston did jump up, look good early, went up 7-0. But I think the big concern here when you look at this, Kansas City looked like Kansas City, but Houston's defense is god-awful.
Yeah, they really couldn't stop anything. We saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I was doubting the other day. I didn't think he was going to have a huge game. Went out there for 138 rushing yards and a touchdown. Mahomes looks pretty good. I think we got basically everything we expected from him. But, I mean, really, Houston looked horrible, like you said. Even the defensive line, which I'm used to expecting more from Houston, didn't have anything going for them.
All right, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We thought that he would be the perfect running back for Mahomes, and I think we saw last night that he's just as explosive as advertised.
Yeah, he really was. And he had more power than I expected him to have. He's a small guy. He's very shifty. He can juke guys in short areas, and we already knew that. But he had more power than I expected him to have, which I think was surprising to me. And he went out there, like you said, 25 carries for 138 yards and a touchdown. It was a phenomenal game for him. And if he's anything, if he gives them a star running back, I think that just puts Kansas City that much further ahead of the pack.
Yeah, because the Chiefs, if they're running for 166 yards a game as a team, they're going to be impossible to stop on offense.
Yeah, because we already mentioned all the speed they have receiver with guys like Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, and of course Travis Kelce is probably the best just pure receiving tight end in the game today. And you give him a running game, it really isn't fair. I mean, there's no way to stop that offense.
Yeah, and the Texas defense, as we said, is bad. And even J.J. Watt can't do much to change that anymore. The Texans couldn't put together an effective pass rush. When they went into bend but don't break mode, protecting against being burned by the deep ball to wide receiver Tyreek Hill, Mahomes just picked them apart with a lot of Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, or he simply handed the ball off to Edwards-Helaire or Williams. We talked about that earlier. But I think this is going to be a long season for Houston. I think the only saving grace is I think Deshaun Watson is good enough where they probably win 5 to 7 games. But that's about it. And the Texans, I think, could easily be looking at 0-4. And Bill O'Brien's going to be on the hot seat really quick.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Deshaun Watson. To me, he's a borderline elite quarterback. He's kind of the next step down from, like, the top 4, top 5 guys in the league. Did him better than I expected from last night. Though carries for 77 yards. I think if they had kept the game closer, we would have seen more from him because he was being effective in the way he was playing. But again, Kansas City jumped out to a good lead by halftime. They had to throw the ball in the second half. They really couldn't use Johnson fully. But that's going to happen, though. If your defense can't stop anyone, this is the situation they're going to be working with all year long.
Yeah, and the one thing is it looks like the Texans will at least get the best of David Johnson. 11 times he carried the ball last night, 77 yards, including a 19-yard touchdown. But this team has other issues. But David Johnson did look good last night.
Yeah, he did. But maybe the biggest storyline from that game could be the Chiefs suffering a loss to cornerback. Tre'Davious Ward, I think, fractured his hand. So I don't know if he'll miss playing time. I don't know if he'll play with something on his hand that might limit his ability to perform. But they could be really thin at cornerback, especially if he misses significant time.
Yeah, and I think headed in, we were like Chiefs and Ravens are the two best teams. I think from what I saw last night, the Chiefs can win with Mahomes only throwing for a little over 200 yards because of the ground game. And I thought the defense looked better than what I expected also, even though it's not against a great Texans defense. It still worries me they gave up 7 yards a carry to David Johnson. I still think the team that can beat them is the team that can run it. So I don't think anything changed my mind about the Chiefs and the Ravens being the teams to beat in the AFC.
No, I really didn't. We expect them to kind of struggle against the run. That's exactly what happened. Like you said, as a team, the Texans averaged 5.4 yards per carry and scored 2 touchdowns on the ground. But the pass rush for Kansas City was there, and they got to Deshaun Watson 4 times. So I think that's what we'll see, kind of the dynamic this year. A good pass rushing unit for the Chiefs, but not really a great run defense.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at the games coming up this week. And we're going to start off with what I think is by far the game of the week. It's a 4:25 on Fox on Sunday. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. You got Drew Brees and Tom Brady. They meet right away as new NFC South rivals. And I think this is going to be a great game. And when we look at this game, the concerning part to me is the Saints have been together for a while as a team. The Bucs haven't. With the lack of preseason play, do you give the edge to the Saints here?
Ordinarily, I would. But the Saints have been slow starters in the past. They lost to Tampa Bay, I think it was 2 years ago when Fitzpatrick was that quarterback early in the season. So I think they're slow starters. I'm actually going to give this one to Tampa Bay, not necessarily because I think the Buccaneers are that much better, that much more gelled as a team, but I just think the Saints start off a little bit slow.
All right. I'm going to go with the Saints just because of the fact that I think the Bucs haven't spent as much time together as the Saints have. I'm going to go with the Saints in a close game, but I still think in the end the Bucs will be the better team. All right, next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, 6.5-point favorites over the Washington football team. And I think when you look at this game, I don't think Philadelphia is getting enough love after upgrading its defense with Javon Hargrave, Darius Slay, and looking to be more explosive offensively around Carson Wentz. I think the Eagles win this game relatively easy, Sam.
Yeah, so do I. I don't think there's really anything on Washington to be afraid of at this point. The only thing I could say that Washington might do well this year is they might have a great defensive front. Other than that, I think it's really a below-average team, so I have to go with the Eagles here.
All right, let's see what you know about football. The Cincinnati Bengals at 4:05 on CBS will host the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday. Joe Burrow's first game. He isn't used to losing or playing poorly. So week one, he's the unquestioned starter in Cincinnati. Did the Bengals pull the upset here?
You know, it's Tyrod Taylor on the other side, and I think Joe Burrow is going to be significantly better from Tyrod Taylor, even from the jump. I also have a run game with Joe Mixon. The Chargers have Austin Eckler, but he's more of a receiving back than a running back. I think the Bengals will try to control the tempo early, and I'll give a slight edge to Cincinnati on this one.
I think the Bengals win this game straight up. I think Burrow scores 400 points in this game.
They win the Super Bowl week one.
The thing I come back to is I don't think Tyrod Taylor's a bad quarterback, but I don't think that Joe Burrow is going to be affected by this being his first NFL game. And the big key here is you have maybe the best defensive player in football, Derwin James, by far the best safety, I think, is not going to be in this game. So Derwin James on this Chargers team, I would pick the Chargers in this game. But without Derwin James, I think you're taking away the quarterback of the defense for them. And I think Joe Burrow, it's going to make life a little bit easier. I think the big question for the Bengals is can they block Melvin Ingram and Bosa? You got Jonah Williams, who I think can get the job done. But the other thing here is the Bengals offense, I think, is going to resemble more of what LSU did last year, which is going to be get the ball out of Burrow's hands quickly, which will maybe eliminate a little bit of the risk of the pass rush getting and beating him up. Oh, man. Sorry about that, guys. But that was President Trump. Joe Biden will be calling later probably. But when I look at this, I think the big difference here is Joe Mixon's better than Austin Eckler. I think the Chargers also have difficulties on the offensive line, especially the interior line. And I think if Geno Atkins is healthy, which is not a done deal yet, but DJ Reader, I think they slow down the run game. They force Tyrod Taylor to beat them. And I don't know that Tyrod Taylor is the guy that can beat a team if he's forced to carry the load to do it. I think he's more of a guy that is a role player that if everything around him is right, he can get the job done. So in this game, I think the Bengals pull the upset, Sam.
Yeah, I think Tyrod Taylor is a decent game manager, but he's not the kind of guy you want throwing the ball 30 times a game if you get one-dimensional. So I don't think he's going to be able to throw and beat Cincinnati. So I would go with the Bengals as well.
All right, next up, very interesting game. The Miami Dolphins, who are sticking with Ryan Fitzpatrick, will go to New England to play the Patriots. There's a lot of questions in this game. Cam Newton will start his first game for the New England Patriots. The Miami Dolphins are kind of everybody's darling. They won more games than everybody expected last year. They added a lot of players in the offseason. The Patriots lost more than what they added, I think. Does Cam Newton get it done in game one in Foxborough against the Dolphins?
You know, Miami's been a team that the Patriots have surprisingly struggled against over the last 2 years. I think they're actually even. They might be at 2-2 compared to the Dolphins. So I'm actually going to go Miami here because I don't think it's going to be a smooth transition for Cam Newton. Even if they're going to keep the offense maybe limited for him in week one, I don't think this is going to be as smooth of a transition as you expect. The Patriots might recover later in the year, but I think opening against the Dolphins that have kind of been together for a year is going to be a little bit more difficult for New England.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting game when you look at the spread. I think there's no doubt I would take the Dolphins in 6 because if the Patriots do win, I think it's going to be because Bill Belichick outcoaching Brian Flores. But I think right now, as crazy as it sounds, I think Miami might have the better roster overall. Ryan Fitzpatrick is hot and cold, which worries me there. But I think I'm going to agree with you, Sam. I'm going to go with Miami to pull the upset in New England this weekend.
Yeah, because Miami beat them once last year, and that was when New England was significantly a better team. So to me, I think it's totally doable to beat them again in the opening week.
Yeah, but in defense of New England losing to Miami, it's usually in one of the last 3 weeks of the season in Miami where it's hot. New England really isn't playing for anything.
That's fair.
So next up, a great divisional matchup in the NFC North finds the Green Bay Packers traveling to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers won the division with a strong first season under new head coach Matt LaFleur. The Vikings weren't far behind, though, but there's been a lot of changes on this Vikings defense. Kirk Cousins is still there, but on the offense, you've taken away Stephon Diggs. I think, to me, this is pretty much an even matchup. And when you take away basically home field advantage with no crowd, did the Packers get it done in Minnesota, Sam?
Yeah, I would give this one to Green Bay because they didn't add any pieces this offseason, which is the biggest criticism of the team, but I don't think they got significantly worse. I look at Minnesota, I think you could say Minnesota got worse. Between losing Stephon Diggs, between losing their 3 top cornerbacks, I think you could say Minnesota is a worse team now than they were last year. I wouldn't say necessarily the same thing about Green Bay, so I would take the Packers in this situation.
All right, I'm going to go with Minnesota. It's for the reason it's early in the season. Dalvin Cook is always a beast early in the season. I think the Vikings defense may be a little tighter than the Packers, but the thing that worries me here is I don't think the Packers did anything to shore up a run defense to get absolutely gouged in the playoffs by the 49ers. And I think Dalvin Cook is going to have a huge day here. And I think Kirk Cousins will be just good enough for the Vikings to eke out a close victory at home. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Colts are favored by 7.5. I think the Colts, especially after what we saw last night, have to be at least a small favorite to win the AFC South. The Jaguars have to be at least a small favorite to get Trevor Lawrence. Who do you think wins this game?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty open and closed book. I would take the Colts. Even if Philip Rivers comes out there and Philip Rivers is struggling, I think they still have a good enough offensive line, good enough running back core to just run the ball for 200 yards and flat out win the game.
All right, Steve Rizzer says I got the Packers 24-20. Got to take Rodgers over Cousins. I'm going to take Dalvin Cook and Mike Zimmer, though, over Matt LaFleur and whoever's running the ball. What is it, Aaron Jones or whatever for Green Bay? Next up, I'm going to agree with you. I think the Colts win this game easily. I think they could play whoever at quarterback and win this. I just think Indianapolis is stronger on the defensive front seven than what they were last year. They've added DeForest Buckner. Jacksonville seems to be a cesspool of inadequacy. There you go. That's a new one. A cesspool of inadequacy. Write that down for my book, Sam.
Yeah, I'll quote you for that one.
But I think the Colts win this game by double digits. Next up, this, I think, is one of the more interesting games. You have the Chicago Bears traveling to Detroit to play the Lions. The Bears have, had some issues at quarterback over the last few years. They drafted Mitchell Trubisky, but just 3 short years later, they're signing Nick Foles. The Lions have Matthew Stafford, who last year through 6 games looked like the best version of Matthew Stafford we may have ever seen. So I think when I look at this, Bears at Lions, I'm going with the Lions just because I think Matt Stafford's a lot better than either quarterback that could play for the Bears. And I think you're seeing DeAndre Swift makes this team it makes the game much easier for Matt Stafford because I think they're going to have a run game. Now, Chicago still has a defense, but there's not much else outside of a defense there. So I'm going to take Detroit to win a close one in Detroit, Sam.
Well, I agree with you the fact that the running games may make life much easier for Matt Stafford. But I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to take Detroit, and I have no faith in Mitchell Trubisky whatsoever. I'll put that out there. But I think the defense is going to be significantly better than what it was last year.
You just said that you were going the opposite way, and you were going to pick Detroit. I think you meant Chicago.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm going to take Chicago. I think the defense is going to be much better than it was last year. It won't be the fantastic unit it was in 2018, but I think it'll be closer to that. Now you got Robert Quinn alongside Khalil Mack. I think the defense is good enough to hold Detroit maybe to 10 points. Maybe the Bears pull out a 13 to 10 point win or 17 to 10 point win.
All right, next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. The first game for the Las Vegas Raiders at the Carolina Panthers, or should we just say at Christian McCaffrey? So, will the Raiders have enough to beat Christian McCaffrey?
I think they will. I think they have enough offensive pieces that they can score more points than what I see in Carolina. It's really tough because I don't really trust either coaching staff at this point, but I really like Christian McCaffrey. I do think there are enough young pieces, though, in Las Vegas that they'll be able to hold Carolina, which is led by Teddy Bridgewater, quarterback, to be able to hold them down significantly and sneak out a win here.
Yeah, my thing is McCaffrey's really good, but Josh Jacobs isn't bad. But I think the bigger difference is a quarterback. I think Derek Carr is far superior to Teddy Bridgewater. I think the Raiders win this game by around a touchdown. Next up, to me, this is a big game because you get the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. And, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that Adam Gase was coaching the Jets, I would think the Jets would have more of a chance here. But I just think when I look at this, I really kind of want to pick the Jets just because I think Sam Darnold is light years ahead of Josh Allen. But when you look at the complete roster, I don't think there's any doubt the more complete roster is the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going to go with the Bills over the Jets here, Sam.
Yeah, I would have to too because the Bills have a phenomenal defense. They've got a great defensive unit. Even look at receivers. They've got John Brown, Cole Beasley, and Stephon Diggs as opposed to it's Jamison Crowder and Denzel Mims on the other side. So and Brashad Perriman. So I would think it has to be Buffalo. I don't trust Josh Allen. I really am not a Josh Allen fan, but at the same point, there's just so many good pieces around him. I think it's being possible for him to entirely mess this up.
All right, next up, we got the Cleveland Browns against the team formerly known as the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens. And, the Ravens have won 2 Super Bowls since moving from Cleveland. I just wanted to bring that up for Greg Gorecki and all those Cleveland Browns fans out there. But the Browns at the Ravens, Sam.
Yeah, I would take the Ravens. The Ravens sometimes struggle with Cleveland for whatever reason it is. They've had a couple close games in the past, but I would still think the Ravens are just talented enough to overwhelm the Browns at this point.
All right, Steve agrees with me. He's got the Lions. All right, so Steve split picks because he agreed with me once and me once. So you like the Ravens here?
Yeah, I would take the Ravens here.
I'm going to take the Ravens, but we do have to remember what was it, week 4 or 5 last year. Cleveland went down to Baltimore and smacked them right in the mouth. I think Cleveland is a better team, but I just think the Ravens have too much. I think the Ravens will be able to run the ball on them. I think they'll control the game. I think the Ravens win by 7 to 10 points, but I think this is a game that wouldn't surprise me if it went the other way. Next up, the Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Russell Wilson here. I think you have to go with Wilson in this case. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a close game. Because Seattle and Atlanta played last year, Matt Schaub starting a quarterback for Atlanta, and it was still kind of close towards the end. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is just a close game because Atlanta comes out firing. And, for some reason, the Seahawks seem enamored with the idea of we have to run the ball early and then let Russell Wilson save us at the end of a game. So that seems to be what they do. They don't seem to kind of keep Russell Wilson on a leash in the first half. I'm not in love with that kind of style of play. But I think Seattle will still pull it out in the end.
Well, I think the revamped secondary here will pay dividends for Seattle. I think that the Seattle offense, with their ability to power run the ball, you got Russell Wilson with the big play action game. I think that's going to make it so Seattle puts up some points in this game. And I think what you'll have is Matt Ryan under a ton of duress in a pass-happy scheme against the secondary ready to make big plays on the ball. I think this game is something like Seattle 34, Atlanta 24, 34-27. I'll take either one of those scores there. But I think Seattle wins this game because I think offensively they're going to put a lot of pressure on Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan will make a mistake or two late in this game, which will cost them.
Yeah, that's sometimes what we see. The Falcons tend to crumble in the pressure. They've never really overcome those late fourth quarter issues they've had. So I think you will see a situation where Russell Wilson will make a huge difference here.
All right. And Steve Rizzer's got 30-27 Seahawks. So we're pretty much on the same page with Steve. Steve sounds like a smart guy. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals will travel to San Francisco to play the 49ers. This is a game where the 49ers are favored by 7. I think that's a awful big point spread in this game. Sam, who do you like?
I like the 49ers just because I haven't seen the new version of Arizona yet. I think there are a lot of question marks there. I think Kyler Murray, people have been picking him to potentially be an MVP candidate. I don't think he's that good, but I think he's a solid quarterback. I haven't seen him play with DeAndre Hopkins yet, and I haven't seen how the defense, some of the new pieces they've had, I haven't seen how they play yet. So I think this has to be a San Francisco win just because of continuity, in my sense.
All right. The one thing to me, the 49ers are hurting a wide receiver to start the season. The defense will need to adjust without Buckner. But I think they can still get it done here with just a running game and a greater depth of playmakers on either side. But the Cardinals are scary with, they've added DeAndre Hopkins, Chandler Jones, Isaiah Simmons. I think this is a close, tight game. I think the 49ers win it, but if I'm betting it, I'm taking the Cardinals in 7, Sam.
No, I would too. Because I think that's a really talented offense. I mean, we talked about this. They've got a lot of pieces there. And they have Kenyon Drake for the full year. They only had him for what, like 6 games last season. Now they got him for a full 16-game season. So it's going to be an incredible. It's going to be incredible help for Kyler Murray, who didn't have a running game for most of last year.
All right, next up, Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys, 2.5 favorites at the Los Angeles Rams. I'll start this one off. I think the Rams win this game. I think there's been distractions in Dallas. I think you got a couple of injuries in Dallas. I like the Rams, Sam.
You know, I was thinking about going for LA, but because you went there, I'm going to go for Dallas, and let's just make this a little bit of a confrontation. I think the Cowboys have more offensive pieces than the Rams can counter. Los Angeles defense, outside of Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, they really don't have a lot. Maybe got some good safety play, but I don't think they have enough to slow down Dallas. I think it's going to be a shootout, but I can see the Cowboys winning in like 37-33 or something like that.
I'm not a big fan of Jared Goff. I'm picking the Rams just because they're not the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, whenever anybody thinks they're going to do anything, it seems like they fall flat on their face. So I'm just going to go with the safe pick and just they're going to continue to fall on their face. It's kind of like what I pick against Cleveland. Next up, Monday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New York Giants. This is a rematch of the first Monday Night Football game played back in 1970. It was a preseason game, Sam. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Actually, no, I did. I did know that. That's farther than I think it was.
It was a preseason game, and it was only shown, I think, in the Pittsburgh and New York metropolitan areas. It was kind of a dress rehearsal for the original Monday night game in 1970, played by who, Sam?
That's not good.
It was the New York Jets and Joe Namath traveling to Cleveland to face the Cleveland Browns in the first Monday
I was never going to get that one.
What?
I was never going to get that one.
Well, you should have.
Yeah,
there's no way you can know the Steelers and Giants were a Monday night preseason game in 1970 and not know who the first game was, Sam.
Oh, because they talked about for the Steelers every time they play Monday Night Football. It's like one of the things they mention all the time.
I've never heard them talk about that.
No?
If you ever want to watch it, though, I got the complete game on a DVD.
Oh, that sounds cool. I'd like to watch that. It was preseason, though. Were they actually playing football, or was it kind of just like...
Yeah, Terry Bradshaw. It was Terry Bradshaw's first game, I think.
Oh, well, yeah, I would love to watch it then.
Yeah, well, send me $39.95 and I'll send it to you. I think this is a rough season for the Giants schedule-wise, and this is a rough start for Daniel Jones. You face an elite defense right away at home, and you've got a healthy Ben Roethlisberger. I think Daniel Jones will take his lumps against Pittsburgh's pass rush. Saquon Barkley, I think, is going to have a hard time running the ball here, but I think the New York Giants are going to upset the Pittsburgh Steelers, Sam.
Really? You just went that way? Okay, I have to go with the Steelers, obviously. There's no way I can bet against them in this case. I think Pittsburgh's going to come out there. I think they're going to run the Giants off the field by halftime. I
think Pittsburgh's just a bunch of communist rednecks. That's the 2 words I never heard used in the same sentence. But I think Saquon Barkley will play well. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have offensive problems. Now, the Giants have defensive problems, but I think this. When I look at this, in week 1, there's always a handful of games that end up being upsets that nobody saw coming. And by the end of the year, the team that should have won that game is in the playoffs, and the team that pulled that upset in week 1 is sitting at home 5-11, get ready to pick 9th in the draft. So I think this is one of those games. I don't think the Giants by any means are the better team. I think if they played 10 times, the Steelers win probably 8 of them. But I think this is one of those times, Sam.
Yeah, well, I have to disagree with you. And so does Steve Rizzer. He's a Giants fan, apparently, and he's going with the Steelers 20-16. I thought it would be a bit of a higher scoring game, honestly, but I can see why you're getting at. I'm going with the Steelers. I'm sticking with them.
Well, he's got 20-16, so it's not like he thinks I'm crazy because he's got the game close too.
Yeah.
Hold on. We got another comment from Steve. Barkley could have big game. Weakness of the Steelers D is their run D, which is kind of what I'm going with, which is why the Giants will win the game. Plus Big Ben. I mean, by the middle of the second quarter is probably going to have to go in and drink him a beer.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Big Ben, because I know he obviously didn't get through the first 2 games of last season. I'm hoping this year he just doesn't get out, doesn't get hurt early, because if that happens, it's basically the season.
You guys still got the Duck Dynasty backing him up?
I think he's on the practice squad now, actually.
All right, next up, the final game of the night, Monday Night Football, a little bit past 10 o'clock Eastern time Monday. The Tennessee Titans will battle the Denver Broncos. I know the Broncos are a team that you think is going to upset people and make the playoffs this year, Sam. Did they win game one?
In this matchup, I like Tennessee in this matchup. But, I've been so bold about the Broncos all offseason, I'm just going to have to stick with them. I have to, ride and die with this one. I'll take Denver. I'll take Denver against Tennessee.
All right, I'm going to take Tennessee to win the game straight up. They're a 1.5-point favorite. I think Tennessee are a 1.5-point dog. Number one, how many people are going to be at this game?
Oh, I don't know. Probably, what is it? Where's stadium is that?
Maybe none or 12. I don't know. So home field advantage isn't going to matter a whole lot there except for the piped-in noise that they're going to make. I think Derrick Henry controls this game on the ground. I think that Ryan Tannehill does enough through play action. I'm going to say this. I think the Titans win this game by double digits.
Really? Here's the thing. I can totally see that happening, actually, which is why I was hesitant to go with Denver, but I've been going with them all offseason long. If Drew Lock is anything what I think he's going to be, I think they'll keep this game at least close.
So let me ask you this question. Hold on now. Because if you think this team's going to be that good, do you think Vic Fangio's that good of a head coach?
No.
Okay, so why do you think they're going to be that good?
I like the player personnel they brought in over the summer.
Doesn't matter. If you don't have coaching, it don't matter. It's the same thing with the Bengals. I see a defense that's improved. I see all kind of offensive weapons, but I still see Opie Taylor standing on the sideline with the cast of our gang as the coaching staff for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is going to be a team that makes a deep run in the playoffs. I think they have a shot.
You know who the little rascals are, Sam?
No.
Oh, jeez. Never heard of alfalfa?
Yeah, I've heard of him. Him? Her? It? I've heard that name before.
Him? Her? What the hell?
Yeah,
Really?
I have no idea what you're talking. No, I've never heard
You
of it.
don't know who little rascals in our gang are. Hold on, we got a question for Greg. Do you think it's fair that some teams are able to have fans while others are forbidden to have fans? Sam, I'll let you go first. And thanks for the question, Greg.
It depends, because is it the team that makes that decision, or is it the local government that's making the decision? Because it was the team that makes the decision.
I believe, because in Ohio it was Mike DeWine, who's a scumbag anyways, and Greg Gorecki. Is that an Ottawa Red Blacks logo on the bottom left-hand side of your picture profile? And then we'll have to explain to Sam what the Ottawa Red Blacks are. So is it fair, though, that some teams have fans and others don't?
I mean, look, it's from what I saw at Kansas City the other night, it's such a small amount of fans that I don't think it really makes a huge difference. So I would say it's all right. I don't really I understand some people are upset about, but it's so small, the amount of fans, that I don't think it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, but shouldn't there be fans at games? Why do we have to
there should be. I mean, I think they've proven they can get fans they can put fans in the stands and feel comfortable with it. So I think it should be all right. I mean, look, Clemson is allowing 19,000 fans per game. I think the NFL is allowing significantly fewer than that. So I think they should have they should be allowed to at least have close to 20,000 per stadium. But the NFL is allowing significantly fewer.
Why should the government have to allow people to go anywhere? Is my question, Sam Teets.
I'm not getting into this government stuff. I don't really know. They've put this thing out there. I have no idea what the legal process is behind any of this stuff.
There is no legal process. A mandate is not a law.
Okay. What's the difference?
And it's a joke, because a law you have to follow. A mandate is just something some asshole that's the governor of a state tells you got to do. I mean, if all these teams would just say that their fans were protesting, everybody would be allowed to show up. And I'll tell you, is there anything dumber than Andy Reid in the little visor?
That was funny to look at, though. That was funny to watch.
It's stupid. Absolutely stupid. I mean, I hate to tell people this, but that's not enclosed on his face, so air can still come out.
I mean, it was fun to watch that fog up, though. I actually enjoyed watching that part.
I just wanted to punch him in the face for being such a weak-kneed little wuss. All right, Greg Gorecki. It is that I have been an Argonaut season ticket holder since 1989. I was a referee. There you go. Now, Sam Teets, do you know what an Ottawa Red Black is?
I mean, that's a CFL team, right?
You only know that because Greg, chimes into the show now.
Well, no, because we had a couple of weeks ago where you were testing.
That's what I'm saying, and that comment was caused by Greg. But really, Andy Reid with the little visor on. And how about this? All right. And I don't care what players do to protest. I'm not one of these people who I'm not going to watch because I don't really care. You have a right to your own opinion. But when the players are all locked arms there, that's not social distancing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But yet Andy Reid's walrus ass still has his face shield on. Why does Andy have to wear the face shield when the players are arm in arm? None of this makes sense, Sam. That's my point.
Yeah, no, it just gives you no reason to yell at Andy Reid, but I agree. I don't think it doesn't make sense to why you have to have the face shield on for Reid because, I mean, your players right there. I'm assuming you're going to talk to your players afterwards and you're probably going to have the face shield off. The players are interacting with each other the entire time during the game and they don't have like the face shields or anything like that. So I really don't get how scientifically it's supposed to help you at all. I don't think it does.
Yeah, plus everybody's outside. It's not like you're inside there.
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'll be honest. It was fun to watch, like I said, but scientifically, I'm sure people would say it doesn't make a lot of sense why you're doing that.
Well, no, I mean, face mask doesn't really protect you from getting a virus either. By the way,
no, it was like only like certain medical grade ones, like super, like ones you can't afford.
Even the medical grade ones don't really. So it's all stupid. It just comes back to them trying to control us. And it comes back to all these people getting all mad and the Kansas City fans booed the guys standing there holding. I don't care. I just want to watch a football game. I'll just go back to my political affiliation is, I'll vote for anybody that is up for leaving me the hell alone. So I haven't found anybody to vote for yet.
Yeah. Everyone's up in everyone else's business.
Yeah, I can protect myself. I don't need cops because, hey, I got guns. So if I call a cop, it's because somebody's trying to break into my house, and the cops are going to show up about 5 to 10 minutes into that break-in. So I would rather just protect myself anyways.
Yeah.
And there is no doubt a problem with police brutality in this country. But there is also the problem where, go to the inner cities, black people or white people to live in the inner city, and maybe give them some hope. Maybe straighten out their schools, maybe make it so they don't have to worry about getting shot while they're going to school. That, to me, is the biggest problem in this country.
No, I think if you improve the inner cities first, I think everything else will follow. Because you're right. I mean, people will get sucked into situations where it's you're either in a gang or you're on your own and you're possibly dead. I mean, that's kind of what happens in the inner cities. So you really don't have a winning situation for a lot of those people.
Yeah, and this is as close as we're going to get to talking politics because I'm not Skip Bayless and you're not Shannon Sharp, and I don't care to be. So...
yeah,
that's all I got to say about that matter. So Monday, Sam, we will come back and we will review all the Sunday games, preview the Monday night game. We'll be live on Periscope, Twitch, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. You can hear all of our shows later on in podcast form on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify. Do we have anything else you'd like to add or talk about before we wrap it up?
I think we covered just about everything I want to talk about. I think we're all good.
All right. As long as you think we're all good, I'm all good. So I'm going to get off here because I got to drive an hour and a half for my team's home game because of COVID regulations, which kept us playing where we were supposed to play to begin with. Yeah. I got to drive farther for home games than I do for away games, Sam.
Is this the Virginia one you're playing? Is this the Virginia team you're going
against? Virginia is there's a team from Virginia coming to play my high school team. And we were supposed to play our first couple games of the season at Mount St. Joe's College, which is really nice. But they canceled their season because of the deadly COVID. And, hey, there you go. Here's Greg. I agree, Greg. Skip Bayless was on the show. I would never come by. And I wouldn't be on it. So there you go. Sam probably would because Sam's a shill for big corporate media.
No, I would not. No, Skip Bayless is no. I couldn't deal with that.
Yeah, you have a great weekend too, Greg. And the best story I heard about Skip Bayless was there was like 1982 or 83. A dispute. They ran a poll in Dallas morning newspaper or a Dallas paper he wrote at. And the question was, who should be the starting quarterback? Danny White, Gary Hogeboom, or Steve Pallure? So Skip Bayless called in to the editor and he said, hey, who got the least amount of votes for being the quarterback? He found out it was Steve Pallure. So then Skip Bayless immediately writes an article about why Steve Pallure should be the starting quarterback because he's trying to piss as many people off as he can because he needs clicks. That's why he makes $6 million a year, and actually decent talk show hosts and journalists don't make near that money because they don't just try to pander to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, I don't know what Skip Bayless actually believes in, because he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything he believes in. He just goes
believes in making as much money as he can, and it doesn't matter to him what he says. His opinions are just whatever he thinks will cause the most controversy.
Yeah, and that's a spoiled way of running a show.
Yeah, but all right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. You can follow Sam Teets on Twitter at SamTeets33. You can follow me at Grueling Truth at Grueling Truth. So until Monday, for Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.